Hello and welcome to Fixed Ops Focus. Steve Shaw treats every declined menu item like treason. Dave Rogers just sighs like, this is why we can't have nice things. Enjoy.
Hey, Steve Shaw, how you doing, man?
Man,
Tell
I'm
me-
off the chart. I'm off the
Tell
chart. How about
me,
you?
no, tell me a story. That's what I want
Tell
to
you a
hear.
story?
Tell me a
Shoot.
story.
Well, our what do we have? A podcast. It is stories, strategies, and success. So we might want to tell a story or two, Oh, you know what? My favorite story, I got to tell you my favorite story. So I just got back from Los Angeles and I grew up in the car business in LA. I spent the greatest majority of my time running some pretty big Ford stores. And so I see a buddy of mine while I'm out in California. This young man worked for me. And when he worked for me, he was a service porter, and our dealership was in LA. So we were open. My dealership was open 7 days a week, and we were open 24 hours a day. And we crushed it at this dealership, right? When we were doing 10,000 hours a month back in the day, right? I mean, we were crushing it. And I had this young man work for me, and I'm just going to say his name because his name is Dwayne. And he's my buddy, right? And so I haven't seen Dwayne in years and years and years, but because I ran into him recently, and he does have a position of authority now. But back then, this young man was a service porter. And because we were a large Ford store in a small, well, we were a large volume store. We had a decent sized operation, but we were pretty compact in SoCal. I won't say the city because then it'd give it away, but we're a pretty compact location for selling 500-600 cars a month. So Dwayne and I, we would always do these little things, where we'd move cars around. And it was kind of like we'd mess with the new car department. They'd mess with us. All the fun stuff we did when we were kids, or growing up. And so every night when we would go home at night late, I call it Operation Focus. And so we'd move all the focuses. I'd tell Dwayne, Operation Focus. He'd go move all the focuses, get them off the lot, right? So this kid was great. And him and I had a great time working together. Well, fast forward one day. I leave on a Friday night, and Dwayne, 19 years old at the time, 20 plus years ago, easily 19 years old. Him and his buddies decided, let's go to Tijuana for the night. So these guys decided that they all worked at the dealership. They're all service porters, and they all worked at the dealership, and they all had to be at work the next day. So they decided, why don't we take the shuttle? Let's take the dealership shuttle to TJ and let's go drinking. And so these characters of mine, they go to TJ, they go drinking all night long. And then, of course, 5 a.m., these guys get pulled over by the federales, right? And so they're all 19-year-olds. And there must have been 5 or 6 of them in our service. It was a Ford, the Aerostar van, something like that. They're in this Ford Aerostar van. It's got the dealership name on the side and everything. And so you got to wonder, why is the dealership Aerostar in TJ on a Friday night at 5 a.m., right? So the federales pulled these kids over and they're shaking them down. And so they said, $500. These kids had to come up with $500 or they were all going to jail. So they drove them over to the ATM and the kids emptied their bank accounts, every one of them. And they had to give the federales enough money so that they could get home. Well, lucky enough, they made it back. They paid the money. They got through border security first thing, 6:00 in the morning. And they were at the dealership at 6:45 a.m. because we opened up at 7 a.m. And as my buddy was pulling the shuttle van in to open up, because he had to open up, as he's pulling up to open up, the GSM comes pulling up right behind him to start, because my GSM came to work every day early. So Dwayne gets there, opens the gate, lets the GSM in, and he goes to work. Nobody said a word about it, right? And this went on forever. Nobody told me about it. It was the best kept secret in the car business for years. And then they sprung it on me on my going away party when I announced when I was leaving LA. They're like, "Did you hear what we did?" I'm like, "No, what happened?" So they tell the story about stealing the shuttle, going to TJ, and evidently having the time of their lives.
Sounds like it. That's funny. That is good.
What
I
about
love
you? What's a good story that's on?
I'll give you a best kept secret story for me. 2008, 9, right in the area, layoffs, cutbacks, right? The economy took a crap, right? So we're sitting there. I was at a 9-store group. those fixed ops for the group. Area vice presidents there. We're talking to store by store by store. We bring them in. We're talking about the personnel count, head counts, what we need to do. And this was a union environment. So we're in this one meeting, one of the stores, and we're going through the head count. The GM mentions this parts driver and mentions that he'd been with us for 10 years. Again, union parts driver. And I look over and I'm like, how come I've never heard this guy's name before? He's been here 10 years, right? I think I've been there 5 years now, right? And then he's like, what do you mean? I go, because everybody that starts as a parts driver eventually wants to move up to a counterman, move up, and those promotions and stuff all come through me, right? He's like, I don't know. I said, well, how old is this guy? He's like 35. Kids? Yeah, he's got 2 kids. I think he's married. Okay. So the AVP's tired of the conversation. He said, take this up later. I'm like, okay, fine. So I just write it down. I got to find this out. I forget the guy's name. So we leave the meetings the next day. I go to one of the other parts managers who's been there for 100 years. I'm like, tell me about this guy. Oh, yeah, he's been with us for a while. I go, yeah, 10 years, I heard. He goes, yeah. I go, what does he do? Tell me about him. And he goes, what do you mean? I go, 10 years, parts driver, $15 an hour, like married, 2 kids. There's got to be a story here, right? He's like, you don't know? I'm like, I don't know anything. I don't know. I'm asking you about the guy. Oh, he sells bootleg videos for all the movies. He's really good. I go, what do you mean he's really good? He goes, oh, he goes to the movies himself, films them. He records them. He recorded it like himself, puts them in nice little jackets and sells them. I go, who's he selling to? He goes, everybody around here buys them. I go, I've never heard of this. He goes, no, everybody buys them. I go, everyone buys them. I go, yeah. I go, how much is he selling for? He goes, $5. I'm like, really? So I go over to the store. I tell the parts manager, get that guy in. Shop steward, get him in there. I got to know. I got to talk to this guy. So I'm like, I hear you sell videos. And he's all proud of himself. Oh, yeah. I heard you make them yourself. I do. I do a good job, man. He goes, I'm the best. And he's bragging about it. I'm like, so who do you sell them to? He goes, everyone. I go, what do you mean everyone? He goes, oh, you'd be surprised. I go, is it my area vice president here? And he goes, no. I said, you've never offered me a video. And he goes, no. He goes, but everyone else buys them. General managers, sales managers, service, everybody and this is a mall, 9 stores. They're all giggling, like the shop steward's giggling, the parts manager's giggling, because I'm like the idiot. I never heard of this before. So I said to him, I go, well, let me ask you a question. I go, where do you take your runs to? Where do you deliver parts? Oh, Delaware, Pennsylvania. We were in Jersey. And I said, okay. I said, do you sell videos to our customers? Yeah, yeah. I'm like, so wait, how does that work? Well, I usually go to Delaware twice a week. I go to Pennsylvania twice a week. So on Monday, I'll take their orders and then I'll deliver it on Thursday. I said, what about Pennsylvania? I go there Tuesdays and then I go back Fridays. So I take their orders and they just buy. Yeah, they give me all cash for this is what he does. So I said, okay. I said, you can go. And he goes, you want to see what I have? I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm fine. So I go back. I call the shop, I call HR and I'm like, I'm going to fire the guy. And they go, what do you mean? I go, he's crossing state line in my van with these stolen videos, right? Like this has got to be a crime here. How long? He's been doing this for 10 years. True story. I had to fire him. 10 years.
Where's the GM tip of the day in either one of these things? I don't even know.
You never know. I had a parts manager one time. The guy aggravated me. He was just one of those guys that aggravated me. I happened to notice that a parts driver would leave every day at 8:30 with his van loaded. And every day he would come back at 4:15. And the guy's name was Big Frank. And he was big. He was a big guy. And we're sitting in a meeting one time. We're at a weekly meeting. We're talking to GM and everybody's there and the parts manager's there. And he was getting snippy. He was getting like, he was just an arrogant guy, and he had a bunch of stores but he was just arrogant. He was parts director. And he said something. And he was like, just saying something. I said to him, I said, Mike, I said, you really should get a job with FedEx or UPS. And he goes, what do you mean? I go, because I don't know how you do it. You somehow manage to load Big Frank's truck up every day with the exact amount of parts that he can leave every day at 8:30 and come back at 4:15. I said, there's got to be some, you're like the amazing Kreskin or something. How do you know exactly how many parts to put in his truck? So, fast forward, my boss doesn't, you're onto something there. And I go, what do you mean? It's one of those instinct things. You just say it, you make fun of it. So we had the guy followed, and guess what? Every day he went to the movies. He watched a 3-hour movie every day. So, I don't know if you want to put maybe a GPS tracker, which we just did on our trucks, and put cameras on the trucks. Maybe you find out where they go nowadays. I'm sure people have some better stories than that. I'd love to hear some of the better stories about where they found their parts drivers on different occasions, but
That would be awesome. I'd love to hear in the comments some goofy stuff because I thought that was one of the funniest things I ever heard. And, I always thought I was a pretty good manager too. I ran a pretty tight ship. We were crushing it, doing 8, 9, 10,000 hours, making $1 million, blah, blah, blah. And then you got this kid that just decides to go to Mexico or go to the movies, just go hang out. Who's paying attention? And of course, we would all tell you that we're paying attention. The parts manager probably said he's so busy, he wasn't looking after it. But
I spent 6 years in Jersey City, and I used to say that I seen it all. Nothing could surprise me anymore. And it's not true. We had a technician, I'll say, in one of my stores at one time, we had a technician that decided that he could take a customer's car home at night. She happened to have a GPS tracker in her car, saw that it went home. I've never had this happen before in my life. I said, and this guy, he just decided he would take the customer's car home at night. And she had a GPS tracker. So she reported it stolen. Cops came to the house, like some of the stuff that people do, like, you wonder, sometimes you wonder how much
hey,
more is going on.
you know how when you watch like a murder mystery or something, and then they put the guy in charge who's actually the criminal, right? They're like, okay, you're the investigator, and we need you to solve this crime, right? Turns out he's the murderer, right?
Right.
So I was working at a GM store in Southern California, Saturn store. And kind of one of those crazy things, it's like somebody's car kept getting taken home. We were getting all these calls at night about people's cars being stolen or being home, or, we're having to put a lot of gas in cars. And I'm like, Donnie, listen to me. You got to help me out, bro. We got to find out who's taking these freaking cars home, right? He's like, I'm on it, boss. I'm going to find out who's doing it, right? I'm like, okay, cool. So this goes on for weeks, right? We never find out or whatever. And again, random, I decide I got to stay late, do some work or do something crazy. So I'm sitting in my office typing on the computer. I'm like, freaking Donnie. He's the guy stealing the cars every night.
Of course it is. The guy that took the van down to Tijuana.
Now, that's another story because, that guy, I shouldn't even go into that story, but my buddy did that for a while too. He drove the same fleet truck home for like a year. Now, I wasn't the manager at the time, but like a year, this car was in for service, and that truck went home every night with him. And the fleet company never asked about it. They had so many freaking trucks; it was just there in the lot, and he just drove it home.
They forgot about their truck. Hey, listen, the Jersey City days, I could tell you about a couple cars there that were, the same type of things. But we had a parts guy up there one time that there was a car. It was stolen. It was recovered. It was one of our cars. It was sitting out for a while. People have been looking for this car forever. We found it. And it sat out there, and this guy, so I get a phone call I had gotten transferred. I get a phone call from the boss over there, and he's like, hey, what'd you do with that car? I said, it's in the bullpen. It's in the lot. It's got no wheels on it. It's just sitting there it was a Volkswagen. And he goes, it's not in the lot. I said, I'll be right over. I drive over across the street. It's on the other side. I go over there, and it's not there. And I'm like, I don't know. That's where I left it. I got transferred 2 months ago. That's where it was when I left, right? As I'm leaving, I drive down a side street. There's this red Volkswagen Cabriolet convertible sitting on a side street, wheels on it, nice and shiny, all cleaned up. So I call him up. I'm like, I found your car. It's right here. So it's right around the corner. Somebody's driving it. It had license plates on everything. And one of the employees decided to get some tires and wheels, put the car back together. I'm telling you, it was sitting on its rotors for I don't know how long. And then decided that he was entitled to drive the car because he went out of his way and did all the work on it. He was driving a car for probably 2 months. Nobody even knew the damn thing.
Okay, so I'm going to tie this all together back to process, right?
Yes.
So process, following the process. We've been talking about that a little bit, accountability process and so on. Multi-point inspection. Me and you have a mutual friend, and you might have heard this story before. Whereas I will always ask you, if you do video multi-point inspections, I always ask I ask the dealership, the clients, I say, what's your process? If you do a video, does it go from tech to service advisor, or say tech parts advisor, customer, or does it go tech to customer? And so my favorite way, by the way, is tech video straight to customer, fast, expeditious, none of this, right? So I'm talking about this in class to your and I's friend, and we won't mention his name because it could get us both in trouble. But this one particular very large organization decided that they no longer can have video multi-point inspections go directly from the tech to the customer. Because one day, this young man, evidently a very handsome young technician with a very beautiful girl friend, this young man, instead of using the app to record the video and send it, he decided to take the video with his phone. Well, he took the video with his phone and then he sent the video. Oh, no, he sent a video to his customer that was supposed to be the video multi-point, but it happened to be what they reverently call a booty dance. And so this video of his girlfriend doing something with her booty, as they called it, went to the customer. And the customer called the GM and said, "I'll take it." So no longer is this one very large organization allowed to send a video from tech to customer.
That's classic. That's a good one.
That must have advisor approval.
Yeah, like advisors are foolproof enough not to send the wrong video too, right? Yeah.
But hey, if we had a process, then we might not have had that. The
Well,
process would have said,
I think the stories though, and again, you could go on and on and on with these stories over all the years, and there's going to be an exception. There's going to be people that deviate. There's going to be that bad seed that, or in your case with the Tijuana, just want kids they just want to have fun, right? They you've had people take vehicles and you had different things happen. I think the biggest thing is trying to figure out which way to stop it if you can stop it. But after all these years, like I said, I thought I saw it all. That's not true. There's always somebody around the corner that's going to come up with a new one. So, you know, one thing I did learn over the years that when these stories happen, usually you get aggravated. There's something happens. It really torques you up. But the way you can laugh at it years later. So, I'll cheat and I'll tell everybody my word of advice to all the GMs and all the managers out there. Write it down and take notes and memorialize it because you're going to look back in 20 years and you're going to crack the frig up is what you're going to do. So as angry as you want to be today, you're going to find some humor in it in 10 years. I guarantee you'll find some humor in it because I know at the time, a lot of these things weren't funny. I'm glad that they told you the day you were leaving when they didn't tell you ahead of time.
yeah, it was at my going away party. It was at my but it is funny, I mean, we all can laugh about it. And I mean, I've heard all the stories. I'm sure you too. I've got GMs would tell me about the bags of Coke in their desk drawer, and so on. Crazy, crazy stuff that I couldn't even have fathomed, I couldn't even imagine that some of these
Yeah.
guys did. But it is a different day. I could tell you that once I was my first job as a technician and we had our shop meeting after work and they gave us a beer and I was not 21. I think I had 3. I crashed my car on the way home. Now, did I tell anybody? No, right? I had a really cool smoking abandoned Trans Am that I rear-ended into somebody else. It was just stuff that happened. So we've all done it, but that's why we don't have alcohol at shop meetings anymore.
No, you don't have it at the PDI parties anymore. You don't have, you really don't. Last time was in the 90s. It was last time probably in the mid 90s when we used to do that stuff.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
everything got politically correct and sterile, and you couldn't do that anymore. We'd do
Well,
it.
we
Yeah,
probably
we'd get in the parts room, close down the shades, we'd crack open the beer and finish out closing the month out. We were behind the scenes. As we used to do it all the time. All the time.
yeah, I worked in Cahokia, Illinois, and over the bridge was East St. Louis, and we'd go to this restaurant called Kokatovich's, and we'd go drink our lunch. That's what we would say. It's like, let's go to Koki's and have lunch, which meant let's go get a bud.
Right. I like it.
Oh, we got to stop doing that stuff.
Yeah,
But thank you.
unfortunately, the fun days. That's the one thing about the old days that. And listen, I miss the martini lunches. I never got that. I wasn't an executive when they had that stuff, or I wasn't in management. So, I
I
never
was
got
just
to
a
go out.
service advisor, but we would go drink.
Yeah, we didn't drink during the day. I've had people work for me that drank during the day, but never been one of those guys to be able to go out to lunch and then they did the martini lunches. So, yeah, I missed that. I missed that. That happened before I became a manager, I think.
Oh my God, you got my head spin. I'm like, oh my goodness. I was a transmission apprentice and I was at a Chrysler store when I was I mean, I was probably barely 17. And I'll never forget this guy. His name was Tony Viviano. And he was older at the time, but he was our tranny tech at this Chrysler store. And Tony was the biggest Italian dude. He could literally pick up an old transmission, put it in with one hand, And I'd been in the store for a couple weeks and I was learning to do transmissions kind of on my own, but kind of having his help or whatever, or having help from some people. And then finally I went over to him and I said, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" And Tony goes, "Oh, so you're going to talk to me?" I'm like, "Yeah, I was kind of scared before, but I needed to ask your advice." And he goes, "Come with me, kid." And he took me to lunch and we had a beer. I'm like 17, 18-year-old kid. We're having a beer at lunch. He's talking to me about the theory of transmissions on Chryslers. I know a lot about how, governor pressure must overcome throttle pressure because Tony Viviani taught me how these work.
God, that's great.
Shoot, we better not. We better get out of here. We're gonna give away too much about
Yeah, I
ourselves.
don't want anybody getting, the statute of limitations should be expired on everything that I've mentioned, so we're good. But yeah, let's head out. Let's call it a day. I think the GM tip of the day was early on. Just, like I said, write these stories down. They're going to be funny later on. They're not funny today. I promise you they'll be funny in 5 to 10 years. So, have some
Very
fun with
good,
it.
very good, sir. I'll talk at you.
All right, man.
Side effects of fixed ops focus include skyrocketing effective labor rates, advisor confidence surges, and service bays that run like Swiss watches. Subscribe and smash like everywhere today. Or brace for recurring I'll text you blackouts, manager level denial, and GM profit hemorrhage that could require emergency recapitalization. Do not ignore.